Let's get into some picks here. I went 3-0 on last week's show, and I did have a bowl pick there with Air Force easily covering the spread in their bowl game. I've got another one coming up. But Tony, get us started here. What are you looking at this weekend?
I'll take the Raiders +3. I don't really like, I don't usually like taking teams who are hot, like have hot media narratives and sort of buying high on them. But I'm believing in the Raiders hype. You mentioned Ryan Hogue, former Raider who was on our show, and he said, watch out for the Raiders. And he had some really good points about why. I think, we were talking earlier about, players liking players' coaches. Antonio Pierce fits both of those molds. Former player, but also a player's coach who you can tell these guys are playing their hearts out for him. And so I could see this being a game where the Raiders are live. Like them for a little sprinkle on the money line as well. No Julian Blackmon in the secondary for the Colts. He's a safety who hasn't missed the game. So this is going to be their first game without him in the secondary. And a lot of people don't realize the Ravens, by a lot of metrics, the Raiders are a top 10 defense. They're playing really well on the defensive side of the ball. So give me the Raiders with points here.
I'm looking at that Pats-Bills game here. Big number, but I'm on the Bills against the spread. 12-point faves, 12.5 at some spots. So we've been talking about it on the show here on The Huddle, and the Bills just might be getting it sorted at the right time. Modest 3-game win streak here after that Week 13 bye, but a nice win at Arrowhead, a 20-point win against Dallas. Love what I'm seeing there so far. And now I bet they had their eyes on this one after losing to this trash Patriots team in Week 7. 4-point Pats win in that game in what was easily, and I mean easily, Mac Jones' best game. And I think they're still eyeing the AFC East. Bills want to get the work done here with the Dolphins visiting the Baltimore Ravens, who will be looking to cement the top seed in the conference. Lots of points here, but I like the Bills in the classic revenge spot against the Pats.
I like it. My second pick here for you. This is my first time doing this on the Huddle, but I've got 2 picks from the same game. We're actually going to take the under in that Colts-Raiders game. Gardner Minshew was sacked 6 times last week. We're starting to see the cracks in the foundation, I think, for the Colts. Gardner Minshew has a pattern of doing this where he gets a job mid-season, he looks really good, and then he tails off. Now, whether that's defenses figuring him out or him just running out of steam, I'm not sure. But I think we're starting to see some regression from him again this year. And I think Max Crosby is going to have a really, really big game for the Raiders. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. Aiden O'Connell had under 100 yards last week in a win, by the way. The Raiders won, and he had under 100 yards passing. I think it was like 68 yards or something like that. And so the Raiders' offense isn't very impressive. But again, I'll say it again, top 10 defense. I think this could be a low-scoring game, despite the fact that the Colts have been a great team to bet over this season.
I don't think O'Connell had a passing yard after the first quarter, I think. I have to double check that, but I think everything came in the first quarter. I think everything came in the first quarter, which is insane. Yeah. 49ers at Washington, another big number here, and especially on the road, but I like the 49ers here as 13.5-point faves. Yeah, fix it and forget it. Embarrassing on Christmas Day. We talked about it already. Absolutely crushed by Lamar and the Ravens. So this game against one of the worst teams in the league couldn't really come at a better time. Ultimate bounce back spot here for the NFC's best team. And we talked about this earlier, but Purdy was abysmal in that game, sure, with the picks, and he's free fall down the MVP odds board. But here we go with another shot against a really bad Washington defense overall, but really dreadful against the pass. So a matchup that you've got to favor Purdy and these skill position players, and it might be, his last chance to cement the MVP. And Sam Howell's incredible drop-off at the quarterback position. Statistically, the season started quite well for him, but it's all gone downhill. And now there are rumors that Brissett may start, and things are uneasy in the QB room with this team. Dude went 6 for 22 against the Jets. Come on here, give me the Niners in this one.
I did really well last week when Brissett came in last week for the Commanders in live betting, because you saw it the week before. You saw when he came in, all of a sudden they were throwing to Terry McLaurin. And so keep an eye on that. If Howell starts in this game and looks bad, and Brissett comes in, there might be a good live betting opportunity in this game with points, of course, not on the money line, with points to take Washington to kind of maybe get a backdoor cover for you live or something like that. The other thing I want to point out about this game, we got a revenge angle for a couple guys, don't we? Trent Williams, if he plays, and he may not, he can't stand the Commanders organization because they misdiagnosed a cancer issue on his scalp. And so that's very personal to him. It's also very personal to Kyle Shanahan as well. And then Chase Young, who they acquired from Washington earlier this year, got 3 highly motivated 49ers that would love to pour it on the Commanders this week. My last pick, Carolina at Jacksonville. I'm going to take the Panthers plus 7 here. I'm not buying any Panthers hype. I actually am still pretty down on them this season. But this is really a numbers bet for me here. Whenever I've got a total this low, under 38, I like the underdog getting plus 7 points here. It's just too many points for a low total like that. Trevor Lawrence has thrown 5 interceptions in his last 3 games. Whether you want to blame that on his health or just Trevor Lawrence not being as good as people think he is, that's concerning as well. And Bryce Young is showing some improvement, arguably his best game of the season last week. And so those factors all combined, give me the 7 points for Carolina.
Texas, Washington, one semifinal here. Give me I feel like I've been Pac-12 all year on the huddle here, but give me Washington plus 4 here against the Longhorns. Washington, obviously, going into this one unbeaten at 13-0, and there has been a few games that were really close. Think Washington State, both Oregon games, even that Oregon State game. But what happened? Penix led them and willed them to victory. So I love Washington in these close games. We talked a lot on the show in the final weeks of conference games that Penix wasn't looking right. But despite those sketchy weeks, he did whatever he could to get the Huskies a win. He's been sensational this season. And I like the age, the experience, and the leadership in this spot here for Penix and Washington. And Huskies beat Texas as 3-point dogs in last year's Alamo Bowl. Yes, there's been some roster turnover. There are a lot of familiar faces on both squads. Both QBs played really well. McMillan and Odunze had nice games. So I like a bit of familiarity here in this one. I'm riding with the Pac-12, and I believe we get a Pac-12 Big Ten championship game with Washington and Michigan there in college football. So there you go. 6 picks to sort your weekend out.